Why were the Inquisitors such effective Jedi hunters if they were so weak? Greetings Acolytes, and welcome back to the Archives. The Imperial Inquisitors have gotten a lot more attention recently due to the release of Tales of the Empire and the upcoming Inquisitor comic series. As we've been analyzing these infamous Jedi killers, there's always one fact that's brought up about them. They aren't exactly the strongest Force wielders we've seen. In fact, it seems that a lot of the Inquisitors, and the time that they show up, Star Wars goes out of its way to show us that they aren't premier lightsaber duelists, nor are they specifically powerful when it comes to their uses in the Force. This is quite surprising considering that, as far as we're aware, they were all former Jedi, with one of them having been a former Jedi Master. But despite being kicked around pretty often by the more experienced duelists, the Inquisitors are still very good at their job and get their job done. So how is this contrast possible? How is it that they're such pathetic warriors, but are still so efficient at hunting Jedi? Well, in today's Holocron, we aim to break down exactly why they're so weak in the first place, and how Palpatine ingeniously made this work in his favor, and created extremely proficient Jedi hunters. The first and most important aspect about the Inquisitors to know is that they are not properly trained in the dark side. When using the dark side, many have assumed that this is a shortcut to immediate power gratification and power boosts. But that is not always the case when someone gives into it. There is a stepwise process: fear, anger, hatred, then strength. Did you expect me to say suffering? According to the teachings of Sidious, the old Jedi saying is actually the opposite of the Sith. When one falls to the dark side, and even while they're training in it, they learn to utilize fear first. In Sith and dark side training, students are chosen when they are much older, so they've experienced loss and fear. Or, if the student is young, the Sith Master will take it upon themselves to teach that student fear. That fear is a foundation that then leads to anger, and this is when they begin to gain power. But notice how in the Tales of the Empire, the fourth sister, or Lin, only speaks of fear as being her ally, and nothing else. This is a common trend with the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors inspire fear in those around them, and then draw upon that power. But do you see the problem? This teaching in the dark side is purposefully incomplete. When you begin at fear, but then you stop, the power and strength of the dark side that comes with going through the full process never happens. This makes sense because the Inquisitors are not Sith, and do not deserve the full teachings of the dark side. Speaking from the perspective of Sidious and Vader, the Inquisitors are given just enough to make themselves useful servants, but not adepts of the dark side that could ever prove any real ambitions which would threaten those above them. We saw in the Tales series that some Inquisitors, such as the Grand Inquisitor, have ventured into anger. The Grand Inquisitor speaks of this when training Barriss, but even he doesn't seem to have gone further than that. Most of the Inquisitors remain in the fear territory of their teaching, which means that they are only ever using a rudimentary form of the dark side. Without passion, hatred, and ambition to fuel the flame, they are weak. But what makes them weak also strangely works in their favor when hunting Jedi. Allow us to explain why. They are all about fear, striking terror into the hearts of the innocents, but they also gain it from their own fear. Their fear of failure if they lose, their fear of Lord Vader's wrath. But importantly, they gain fear from their Jedi victims. Fear disrupts the powers of the Jedi. It is a first step to the dark side for many. And fear cuts a Jedi off from their power. Following the Purge, all Jedi knew that they were being hunted, so they were of course terrified of being found by Vader. The Inquisitors are living representations of this looming threat of death that is coming for all Jedi. It doesn't matter what their power is. They are not only drawing power from fear that they inspire in the Jedi, but the Jedi Knights in question are actively weaker because of that fear. Only certain Jedi are afraid though. There are many who do not feel this fear, such as Ahsoka Tano, and that is why Ahsoka is so proficient at defeating Inquisitors. Even the Grand Inquisitor is far below the power of Ahsoka Tano. But we can go even further with Jedi such as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anya Kuro. When Inquisitors encounter this level of Jedi, they are told to defeat, and that these Jedi are the prize of Vader. Only Vader can handle the fearless Jedi who are prepared to fight what is coming for them. None of the Inquisitors have stood up to the likes of Karak and Fala, who was a Jedi warrior literally bred for battle. Only Vader could take care of such a challenge. But we talked about why they are able to kill most Jedi. But what about the actual hunting process of an Inquisitor? Despite what's often being shown on screen, actual Jedi execution only makes up less than 10% of an Inquisitor's time. What we don't see is the painstaking process of locating the Purge survivors in the first place, hence their name. Inquisitors are always following leads, even if they are scant rumors. But they're not just going on wild bantha chases. Rather, they know exactly where to look. Because they are all former Jedi, they think like Jedi. And after Order 66, we notice many survivors flee to exile in the same way. The classic idea of a Jedi hermit only comes much later when the Jedi survivors realize their mistakes. Before then, Jedi were integrating themselves into smaller communities. The Grand Inquisitor made a perfect statement about this in the Kenobi series. There, he talked about how Jedi are creatures of habit and have an insatiable urge to help others and to defend the weak, even in a galaxy that wants them dead. They aren't able to just keep their head underground when people need their help, so they blend in with off-the-grid societies and still try their best. Unfortunately, this help is what draws out the Inquisitorius. First, Inquisitors dispatch notices of rewards for information regarding Jedi, and they target these impoverished communities' low quality of life. This system is perfect, because not only is there a higher chance that a Jedi is hiding out on a lower level planet, but there is also desperation there. The rest of what happens is what you see. The Inquisitors arrive and harass the citizens until one of two things happens. Either someone gives them the Jedi's location, or the Jedi reveals themselves. And now we go into another advantage of the Inquisitors. They are pack hunters. Unless it's the Grand Inquisitor, they show up in groups of 2 or more, and they will swarm the Jedi and cut them down quickly. This technique was incredibly efficient, which is why more Jedi survivors that we see in the future became jaded towards the galaxy at large, and would choose to live in isolation. The aggression of the Inquisitors was too much, especially when they hunted in packs and preyed on the vulnerable state of the galaxy. All of this was by Palpatine's design, who, as far as we have seen, has ensured that all Inquisitors are former Jedi. Yes, trained dark acolytes like Ventress would be a lot more effective in a fight, and with power. However, fighting only takes up a very small part of an Inquisitor's time. They need to be able to think like a Jedi and hunt them, because even if they fail, Lord Vader will not. Which leads us to the final result. Inquisitors were efficient and expendable. Not a lot of time was put into their training, and Vader usually disfigured them in some way to teach them pain, loss, and fear, and then forced them to fight purely offensively, breaking them of their Jedi habits. After this, they were released into the wild to do the Empire's bidding. There was no more time investment in making them strong in the dark side, and therefore no real loss should one of them inevitably die. But what's interesting is that this final perk of the Inquisitorius backfired on Sidious. Palpatine would later write about his massive disappointment with the Inquisitors. They all died so easily that he called them fools, which would bring shame to the Empire, making them look weaker. But what you train is what you get. Anyway, my friends, hopefully this explains why the Inquisitors were so good at hunting Jedi, despite being so profoundly weak. But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it was a good idea to have expendable dark side soldiers to do the job of hunting the Jedi? Or did this prove more damage than good? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel today, and may the Force be with you.